Good morning, third grade. Today we're going to do a little lesson about how we relate picture graphs to bar graphs. And so, because that's what your lesson 4 in math is today. So I thought I would relate something that's going on in our house right now. Libby and I are working on, well, it's actually Libby's business, but I am helping her do some sewing. And so she's been making masks for people. And I've been helping her as much as I can because I like to sew, you know that. But I'm kind of hurt or hindered because of my thumb. But it's getting better. And so I've been helping a lot. And so she has a little business and it's called Sweet C's Creations. And so she's been making masks for people. And so I thought I would illustrate how some of her mask business is going and how we relate that in a picture graph and then in a line or in a bar graph. So I have here on my whiteboard a picture graph. And if you can see Sweet C's masks, some of the business that we've been doing. This is just a small illustration of the work that she's been doing or we've been doing. We've been doing lots of masks. So the big thing that I want you to make sure you notice in your work, in your homework, is that the pictures represent the number of frequencies that something is done. And so if you have a key at the bottom of your graph, don't just assume that 1 equals 1. It might equal 5, it might equal 2, it might equal 10, whatever the case might be. In my case, I'm making my pictures equal 2, okay? So each time in the pattern of a star, for instance, that I have a star, it equals 2. So 1 star equals 2. So in this case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. That means 2 times 5. So we're using our multiplication skills. That equals 10 star patterns of masks that have been done. Same here, SpongeBob pattern. That's a new pattern. So that's only 2 have been made. That's probably not true. We probably have done more than that, but this is just an illustration. Polka dots, flowers, and such, okay? So that's my picture graph illustration in that case. So then I take that information, once that has been illustrated, and I have that data, because I collected that data, like that's what we talked about in lesson last week. I take that data, and then I take that information and I build a bar graph, okay? So in your bar graph, you use on the bottom, you use your whatever data that you've built. So my information is my mask material, my mask information that I'm using, okay? So stars, whatever patterns I'm using, okay? So at the bottom, I have to label my bar graph. So it's the patterns that I'm using is at the bottom, and then the number of masks is going up, going this way, because my bar graph is going to show this way. Now, some bar graphs will go horizontally, but this bar graph is going vertically, okay? So then you build your numbers going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to 12. Okay. Now some bar graphs, you might skip numbers. And if you've noticed that in your bar graphs in your math lesson, it might skip 5, 10, 15, 20. And then you just have to estimate where your number might fall in between that, in between those numbers. Okay. So for instance, as we said before, the number of stars was 5 stars, and that equaled 2 times 5 was 10. So then I build and obviously it's not straight because I'm working with, I didn't have a ruler and I'm just doing an illustration. So I'm not worried about how perfect it is. We just wanted to do a quick illustration. So going up to the 10, building a bar, I'm coloring it. just to make it illustrate, green was green, okay? And then I can illustrate the same with SpongeBob, only had 2. The polka dots had 6, and the flowers was the most with 10, or with 12, I'm sorry. So you can see that illustrated with the picture graph, and then you can turn that into a bar graph. So the same information, but you can illustrate with the bar graph, and you can see data is spread out that way. You can see with your data how much or how little production was done, okay? So graphs help us understand data. Data is information that we gather, and data helps us understand what's happening in a certain situation. Data is very interesting to study. I think it's tells a lot about a situation, tells a lot about what's going on with certain topics and such. If you've been paying any attention to the news that's going on in our world, they use data all the time. Data is being spread about our current health situation right now every single day. And we have graphs and all sorts of data about the virus and such, and they use this data on a daily basis, and they are spreading that data as to the number of cases that are discovered and the number of deaths, unfortunately, and all of that information. And this is all very important information that hospitals and health departments, and that's what all of the information is based on. And that's how they're using it. This is all very important, what you're studying right now, because that's how they use data. And so I think that's really interesting if you're paying attention to that kind of stuff. That's how we're using it. So shout out to my friend Alan for sending me an awesome picture yesterday on email. And I really thank you for that. It's so cool. I love it. I will talk to you guys later. I'm going to read you a story later on. Bye.